ladies and gentlemen, I said one more video, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Georgia versus Florida, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Although for some reason they don't call it that for some reason, but I do call it that. And, you know, they can't even agree on the name of the rivalries. Now, if you're alphabetically, if you're from Florida or you're more precise in alphabetical terms, it's Florida, Georgia. But if you're down here with us in Georgia, Bulldog Nation, it is Georgia and Florida. And you guys know the history with Georgia and Florida in basketball. For me personally, having to sit through all those losses, it's not been the same for football. Georgia has not lost to Florida since 2020 in a non-COVID season since 2016. And this is going to be one of the more weirder Georgia and Florida games. And I had to look back because if you've not been following college football, well, first we're going to get to this. We're going to recap all the SEC games real quick and then go through what happened, the turmoil that was over the weekend. I mentioned it in my other video, though. I cannot believe that Freddie Freeman won it. And here's the call, actually. Oh, I don't give a frick about Taylor Swift and Taylor Kelsey, man. What the frick? My ESPN app made me click that. Here's Freddie Freeman's home run. I do want to see this real quick, so please pardon me. Or RB, was it a home run or walk-off home run in Marathon 18? And so, pardon me, give me 24 seconds. I want to see this because I did not stay up and watch it last night. That's even if my ESPN app loads. And I know there'll be Braves fans watching this, so I can pretty much kind of keep a conversation with you. Freddie Freeman's going to be remembered more for a Dodger than a Brave now at this point, and I hate it, but that is what it is. Just like how Mookie Betts is going to be remembered more for being a Dodger than the Boston Red Sox, and how just like how Shohei Ohtani will be remembered for being a Dodger more than being an Angel. And somebody pointed this out on Twitter. I don't know who it was, but they made a post saying something like,
Channel 89.
They all wanted to be Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani all wanted to stay with their original teams, or they went to Los Angeles and of course became what they are now. But enough baseball, as this is not a baseball channel by any means. Just one more though. I just read that I was getting off that 30 years ago today, the Braves won the World Series in 1995. That's very cool. The late great Skip Carey and Pete Van Wieren and Joe Simpson. Joe Simpson is one of my favorite broadcasters. They had the call of that game. In the NFL last night, the Chiefs beat the Commanders 28-7. I unfortunately hate that call. I was going for the Commanders. We're going to look at SEC games though. And last week SEC games, which was October 25th, you had number 3 Texas A&M 49, number 20 LSU 25, Alabama 29, South Carolina 22. Alabama actually had to come back and win that game. We had a party, so I didn't watch it, so they did have to come back and win that game. Ole Miss beat Oklahoma 36-24. Vanderbilt beat Missouri 17-10. Tennessee beat Kentucky 56-34. Texas beat Mississippi State 45-38 in overtime. I hate it for Mississippi State. I really wish Mississippi State would have won that game. And Auburn beat Arkansas 33-24. So let's go over a few things. I don't know if we recorded a video or not, but Billy Napier has been fired from Florida, and now Brian Kelly has been fired from LSU. And the matter of the fact is about Brian Kelly. And we'll get to Florida in a minute because that's going to lead on the Georgia-Florida game, and I could mention stuff that. The way with Brian Kelly is, and I don't care who likes this or not, I'm sorry if you're offended, I don't like Brian Kelly. I never have liked Brian Kelly. You know, yeah, is he a good coach? Yes, but he's a sorry human being. And now more and more is getting released about him being a sorry human being by other LSU players and media and everything else. So I'm glad he's gone. I really like LSU. Now, do I like LSU in baseball? No. Do I like LSU in basketball? No. But I do like LSU in football. I like to see LSU succeed in football. And if you're wondering why I don't like them in the other sports, basketball, the Noah Thomason and Jalen James incident, where they hit both of them pretty much in the back and they didn't get a foul called. And then the Justin Kier game in 2021, where Justin Kier threw the ball over the end line, hit a guy, LSU guy. It should have been out of bounds on LSU. It should have been Georgia ball, a chance to win, and Georgia could have won it. Unfortunately, it was COVID, so there was no review. And then I like them in baseball pretty much because they beat us in baseball every time we play. But I do respect LSU in every sport. So I like to see LSU win. And I think that there needs to be something. LSU needs a good coach. They don't need Lane Kiffin. They don't need James Franklin. They don't need Billy Napier. They don't need, anybody else. They need a coach who can win. And to be honest with you, I don't know the names that LSU is going to look at for their next head coaching job, nor do I really care, to be honest. But I want LSU to get a very, very good coach. And, excuse me, as I said, Billy Napier was fired from Florida. I don't think we mentioned that. If we did, I apologize. But here's the interesting part, okay? 2004, Florida loses to Mississippi State. Their coach was Ron Zook. They fire Ron Zook, and they lean into the Georgia-Florida game with an interim head coach. Well, Georgia wins that game. The Fred Gibson touchdown across the middle. So that was very, very fun. I think this is only the second time in history that that a team is coming in with an interim coach, because I went back. Ray Goff was fired at the end of the year. Jim Donnan got to finish out the bowl game, and Mark Richt, of course, was fired at the end of the Georgia Tech game. So Georgia, to my knowledge, has never had an interim coach coming into this game. So I know Florida will be the second, and you know what? I told a few Florida fans I know, I said, Florida probably has a better chance to win this game with an interim coach anyway than Billy Napier, because I've said it multiple times in these preview and recap videos. Florida would be undefeated if they had a better coach. I mean, their defense is really, really good. Their offense is not that good, but when they play good, they can win. Their defense has kept them in game time and time again. Just like the LSU game, the defense kept them in the game. And what does Lagway do? He threw like 4 or 5 picks, including one of the triple covers near the end of the game. You can't do that. And you know what? You think about what's the last few years for Georgia Florida been like? Well, 2022 Florida was kind of close, but kind of not. Florida made a few big plays late in the third quarter to kind of get back in it just a little bit, make a 25-point lead, 16, just for example. Then what does Georgia do? Well, Georgia marches right down the field and cuts the hair off of the gator, and then, Georgia dominates the rest of the game. 2023 started out close for the first quarter. Then that game changed really when they ran that little weird play with ETN on fourth down. They ran a very weird play with ETN on fourth down. It was like a reverse or something like. It was not a reverse. It was more like a direct snap to the quarterback. Then he ran. ETN was the quarterback, and he ran to the middle, and well, that was that. But and then 2024, and a lot of my Georgia fans will disagree with me. Florida should have won last year's game. Florida was going good. Lagway gets hurt. They have to play with a first-string quarterback from Yale. Even in the midway through the third quarter, they're still winning. And when that game ended, for Florida's hopes to lose that game, Florida's hope to win that game ended when they're lining up to kick a field goal. They're lining up to kick a field goal, and the Florida snapper just completely misses the holder, and the holder loses it, and then it goes like 40 yards downfield. Excuse me, it's getting a little cold out here. I say I don't get cold, but it ain't good to be cold. The Florida snapper loses it. It goes all the way back down the field, and Georgia comes back and wins that game. C.J. Allen had a pick that pretty much sealed it. And then Peanut got the game-winning touchdown when he ran it into the end zone. It also was the game that Nate Frazier did the chop, and then there was nothing wrong with the chop that he did the neck slash, and then all the players were yelling at him on the sideline. So it was a good game. Excuse me. Obviously, I think about 2012, which, by the way, yes, I'm talking to you. If you have Scott's Call of 2011 and 12 Georgia, Florida, I'd be ever so appreciated if you could send me that. I ain't talking about highlights, talking about the full game. I have highlights. I thought about posting them, but I really don't want to dig through my files and find it right now. But I will at one point. One of those is on the Scott Howard Greatest Calls video. I think it's the 2012 Georgia Florida game. But anyway, with that the way, this is going to be a really, really exciting game. I mean, and Georgia's coming off a bye week, so I don't have nothing to talk about before that. But real quick, we could also preview this week's SEC games, which we will, of course. We're going to NCAA football, SEC, the best conference in football. You got Vanderbilt, number 9 Vanderbilt, and 20 Texas at 12 o'clock. Arkansas and Mississippi State at 4 o'clock. 7-1 Ole Miss versus 3-5 South Carolina at 7 o'clock. 18 Oklahoma and 14 Tennessee at 7:30. Kentucky, Auburn at 7:30. And, of course, Georgia, Florida at 3:30. And three things. Number one, I call Texas being disappointing. The fact nobody listened to me hurts my feelings. I told you Texas would suck, and I was right. Number two, Ole Miss will lose Saturday. I have South Carolina winning that game. I have faith in the Gamecocks, and I think that South Carolina can pull an upset. And number three, the fact that neither Oklahoma and or Tennessee, or mainly Tennessee, the fact that Tennessee does not have a radio booth for their Spanish broadcasting is absolutely horrible. If you're Danny White and you're Tennessee, you need to get that fixed as soon as possible. That is an embarrassment. The Spanish radio broadcast matters just as much as a regular broadcast and or the TV broadcast. So the fact that Oklahoma can't even bring their Spanish broadcast to them, and Oklahoma is, shout out Toby Rowland, they're going to do the Spanish broadcast to the same booth with the away broadcast. The fact that Oklahoma has to do that and Tennessee doesn't even have a Spanish radio booth for their own team, it's embarrassing, man. That is embarrassing. Tennessee has the biggest football stadium in the entire South. You can build a small booth for their Spanish radio broadcast so people who don't understand English and Spanish can listen and speak Spanish can listen to it. Or if you're like me and you like to hear Spanish announcers and other broadcasting, Tennessee, that's embarrassing. Fix that. But back to football. Georgia, Florida is going to be interesting. Georgia had got off very, very slow against Ole Miss. Well, not really very, very slow. Georgia's offense. What am I talking about? Georgia's defense got off very, very slow against Ole Miss. Georgia was scored at Ole Miss was scored at Georgia. But they hunkered down late and they did what they needed to do. And I'm at to the point now where I'm almost saying, and I've said this for a long time, I'm almost to the point where I have maybe faith of Georgia winning these shootout games. And I know it sounds odd to say, but I have faith that Georgia can win these shootout games. They won it against Tennessee. They won a shootout against Ole Miss. I don't want it to come to that, but I'm at to the point where maybe Georgia. I always say if this game is a 10 to 17 point game, I trust Georgia. I trust our defense, and we could win. 24 at most. But then when you start getting to 38 and 40 and 44. I always say if this game is a 10 to 17 point game, I trust Georgia. I trust our defense, and we could win. 24 at most. But then when you start getting to 38 and 40 and 44. 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 40 I think Georgia can win. I really do. I think Georgia can win these shootout games. I would have never imagined saying that last year or 2 or 3, 4 years ago. But if Georgia can win these games that are 44 points, I didn't necessarily believe that, but it's proven that Georgia can. Georgia has, again, 44 against Tennessee a month or so ago, and of course Ole Miss 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I don't want it to be a shootout. I don't want it to be 54-51 off a game-winning field goal. But if you can win them, then why not? Now, obviously for Florida, they're going to have a different approach to this game. I think Florida's mindset should be. And there are a lot of Florida fans who, like I just said in my last video, talking about basketball season, who've kind of zoned out. But the few Florida fans that stay sticking with Florida football, and they're thinking about this game, I don't see why a Florida fan could not think they can win this game. And I'm being honest. I don't know how a Florida fan, with the way Georgia has played, and with everything going on in Florida, I don't know how they don't look at this game and say, you know what, we have a chance to win this game. I don't know, because Florida has just as good a chance as Georgia to win this game, if we're being honest. So Florida's mindset in this game should be, let's hog the ball, let's 10-3 at halftime, and then come out second half, win it 24-3, or just an example. That should be the Florida Gators mindset. Georgia's mindset should be, let's score every time we have the ball. And I want that to happen. I think that if Georgia can control the line of scrimmage, of course, that's just football. I think Georgia could do good and win this game. You see Georgia's schedule, and you look at, after Florida, I'm just Mississippi State, Texas, Charlotte, Georgia Tech. Not necessarily maybe in that order, but that's what Georgia's last 4 games are going to be. And I just really think if Georgia even loses, I think you could put a 3-loss Georgia team in the playoffs. Now, I know that's going to be biased, and, people are going to say that I'm being biased, and genuinely, I don't care. Yes, I'm being biased. I think you could put a 3-loss Georgia team in the playoffs. Do I think Georgia loses to Florida? Absolutely not. But do I think it's 42-0, or, what was it in 2017, 42-7, or something like that? Yeah, I don't think Georgia wins like that, but I think Georgia can win this game. Maybe 35-20, something along those lines. Maybe a game like last year where you struggle in the first half, you get a little momentum in the third quarter, and then the fourth quarter you completely take it over. That's maybe what I think might happen, but it kind of breaks my heart seeing all these Florida people talk about Florida's not going to win. Like, dang, just give your team a chance. I always go back to this game. 2013, Georgia Southern in Florida. Georgia Southern just an hour and a half or 2 hours away from where I live. Went into Gainesville, and this is the year Georgia Southern did not have a good year that year. Even in their worst year, they went down to Florida and they beat the Gators like 26-20, I think. And that was, at that point in time, that was one of Georgia Southern's biggest wins ever in program history. Still probably their biggest win ever in program history. I maybe would put the Camellia Bowl, the 2018 Camellia Bowl up there, or maybe the 2018 regular season game against Appalachian State. Because the thing with Georgia Southern is they should have beat Georgia Tech and they should have beat Georgia Tech and North Carolina State in 2014. They should have beat Georgia and Ole Miss in 2015. They should have beat Minnesota in 2019. So Georgia Southern should have 7 or 8 power conference wins. Instead, they only have Nebraska. But that's a story for a different day. But if Georgia Southern, I'm not there comparing Florida and Georgia Southern. I'm just giving more of an example of what that belief can do that you could win. Now, if Lagaway has to play good, if he throws 5 picks and won the double coverage when it's 4 minutes to play and triple coverage, and that's it, that's the ball game. Florida's not winning at all. But if Lagaway plays good and Florida's defense plays like they have all year, Florida has a chance to win. And as a Georgia fan, that should scare you. It's been a long time since Georgia has lost to Florida. We're talking about 5 years. And whatever it has been since 2016, if you don't want to count COVID, there's some people who see COVID, oh no, God, there's an asterisk. Like, it happened, shut up. But, you know, as a Georgia fan, I'm a little worried about this game. You know, this should scare you. You got to get the first half problems fixed, though. If Georgia could get the first half problems fixed and play a complete football game, I don't know how Georgia doesn't win. I mean, Georgia is better than Florida. Georgia is more talented than Florida. Georgia should be able to beat Florida. But again, I like to play both sides here. I like to give you a reason why Georgia should win and Florida should win. If you're a Florida fan, you really do think that Georgia should be able to win this game. Or you should think that Florida should be able to win this game. You need to have that belief that you can go in there and win. And I just want to comment on the whole Jacksonville, Athens, Gainesville thing. Next year it's going to be played in Atlanta, I think, and then the year after either Tampa Bay or Orlando. Now, I don't remember, so I apologize, but I want to give my opinion on this. In 1994 and 1995, they played in Athens. In 1994, my man Eric Zier had a bad day at Florida. He threw like 4 picks, and then it was just a disaster. And then Athens in 1995 was a disaster. They say that Steve Spurrier looked at Georgia's game program before the game and saw that nobody's never put 50 up in games in Athens. And Spurrier said, okay, well, let's put 50 up, and they did. They went like 52-7 or something like that. But that still, to this day, is the worst loss ever at Sanford Stadium history. Not heartbreaking-wise, but point-wise, that's the most points ever put up by an opposing team in Sanford Stadium. Which I can't believe it, because I think about games like the Ole Miss game 2 weeks ago, or the 2006 Georgia-Tennessee game. That was crazy. That game was stupid. But they played those 2 years in Athens and Gainesville, and then they never played again in Gainesville. And I don't know what people want. I don't know, because you have half the Georgia fans who say, let's play in Athens and Gainesville every year. Then you have the traditionalist Georgia and Florida fans say, well, let's play it in Jacksonville. And the majority of the people who say it, let's play in Jacksonville, are Florida fans. That's not a shot at Florida, that's just the truth. Most of the people who say play the game in Jacksonville are Florida fans because, you know, they're in Florida and whatnot. I get it. I mean, if it was played in Atlanta every year, we'd be like, oh, well, let's keep it in Atlanta. I mean, and, you know, obviously the teams don't care about selling out these days because, I mean, Auburn's going to play a regular season game in Atlanta next year. Georgia and Georgia Tech is going to be in Atlanta for Georgia Tech home games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium the next few years. There's not many neutral site games left. I think Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma, and Navy and Army are the last neutral site games in college football. I understand that people have this traditionalist look, and, you know, but my thing was you don't have to play it in Jacksonville every year. What I mean by that is the 2 years they were doing construction to the Jacksonville Stadium, which I don't know what the stadium's named. I think it's called Jacksonville Stadium. It used to be called the Gator Bowl, but what is their stadium called? Altel Stadium or something like that? I don't remember, but I'm just going to give an example. They're building it. This is the last year this game will be played in Jacksonville for 2 years. And I think you could have said, well, okay, in 2026 and 27, you know, we could play neutral site, but let's play it in Athens, and let's play in Jacksonville. Let's play in Gainesville, just so people could get what they want, and they could play home and home. And you know what? If they would have played those 2 games at home and home, maybe people wouldn't complain about them playing in Jacksonville for the rest of, you know, how long they want to play in Jacksonville. Probably the rest of time. It's going to be 200 years, and my great-great-great-grandson is going to be doing the same thing, saying that, oh, Georgia and Florida are still in Jacksonville. You know, it's been in Jacksonville forever. They only played it in Athens and Gainesville twice before they started doing Jacksonville every year. after they started doing Jacksonville every year. There was a few times in the early 90s they didn't play in Jacksonville. The early 1900s, excuse me, they didn't play in Jacksonville. They played in a few other places. But yeah, that's what I think about that. So final predictions is I think Georgia wins. If you want to score, maybe 35-10, 35-10 Georgia, maybe 42-17. But Georgia does win. Georgia beats the Gators again. I believe it with all my heart that Georgia wins this game. And didn't have a problem with Georgia winning this game, by the way, either. So no first half struggles. Georgia gets that fixed, and Georgia beats Florida. My final prediction, I'm going 35-10. So there you go. There's basketball versus basketball video, and now football video. That's all. I have some surprises coming, and you've seen the 08 Florida game and then the 07 Rainbow Classic. I have a few surprises coming for you guys. I have some stuff coming in the mail I can't wait to show off and everything else. But yes, Georgia and Florida. Georgia does win. Hopefully Georgia wins. Hopefully we're not doing this video Monday or Tuesday. It would be very bad to do this video after Georgia lost to Florida and a basketball lost to Bellarmine. I'd be probably pissed off and probably couldn't record, but we would do it anyway. For the love of the game, is that right? So Georgia and Florida, 3:30 radio coverage starts at 11:35. You can listen to Jeff and Kevin at 11:35, and then 12:35, Hondo, Scott, Josh, and Lauren and the gang carry you off to kick off with the tailgate show. Sirius XM should carry the game, 95.5 WSB. I found out a trick that I'll be trying this week with my phone for WSB, so I'm not going to say anything. You'll hear it if we do when we do Highlight Saturday. So Georgia, Florida, let's go Dogs and beat the Gators. Every day's a great day to dislike the Florida Gators, so remember that as well. So go Dogs and let's beat the Gators.
Hines Ward standing up outside of one of the two tight ends. Edwards dives and got a touchdown. Got his body up in the air again, and we have taken that lead back 20-17. The Dogs just drove it all the way down and got back in this thing and surely gave the defense a shot in the arm with that. Dax Langley to try the extra point.
Shades of Herschel Walker down on the goal line, Larry. They give it to Edwards, and he really gets in the air and dives over that pile. That's 3 touchdowns for Robert today.
Set it down, and the kick is up, and the kick is good. And the lead is 4, and the Bulldogs lead 21-17 with 97 seconds to go here in this third quarter. And still more than 6 minutes. Toss sweep to Edwards. No blocking, but he got to the corner anyway, and he's going down the corner over the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5, and he's down in the corner. Touchdown! He stayed in bounds. He tight-roped it. A sudden pitch to Edwards, who stayed inches inside, and Edwards just went 37 yards. I think some people may have slowed down and thought they had him out of bounds in the corner. We got out to the corner. They had men there, and all of a sudden Edwards turned that corner. Edwards just went 37 yards, and it's 30-17. I'm going to turn around now and watch a replay and see how close. He got a blocker in front of him, Hines Ward. Hines Ward had a great block in front of him, and he stayed in about a foot. It's 30-17. I have done what they told me to do.